The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Yaron Brook Show on this Friday, September 12th. Thanks for joining me. It is late here in Italy. It is 10:30 at night. Just a busy evening. I was planning to do this much earlier, and then things just get piling up in terms of meetings and stuff and presentations that I promised to do. And I've been in this office for 4 hours already, 4.5 hours already. Anyway, let's get on with the show. So as I don't know where you would have to be not to have heard that the assassin, the murderer of Charlie Kirk was captured today. Actually, was handed over to authorities by his father, by his parents, who had figured out that it was him. He had admitted it to them, or at least indicated, gave them enough reason to believe that it was him. And they actually called the authorities through a friend of the family, and had their son arrested. So good for the parents who put justice and honor really above I don't know, the idea of family ties. And as I told you yesterday, I hate to pat myself on the back, but I got to do it sometimes. I was right again. The assassin was not a trained professional. He was not a foreign agent. Now, I know some of you will say, oh no, this is just a cover-up. This is all pretend. The real assassin is still out there. You don't know, Yaron. What are you talking about? This is the cover-up. But the reality is that he does not work for the Mossad. He does not work for the Ukrainian secret police. He does not work for the FBI or the CIA. Or for that matter, he does not work for the Democratic Party. The assassin is a 22-year-old. His name is Tyler Robinson. This is a kid that grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. Parents, from what I can tell, and a lot of what we're getting right now is, fog of war kind of stuff. So that caveat. Parents are Republican. Introduced a gun culture by his parents, so he learned to shoot, and I guess is a good marksman. What can I say? But not a professional. Smart. This kid traveled with his parents, seemed to have a happy childhood, and smart. Had a 4.0 GPA and I can't remember what ACT score that put him in the top 1% of American students. But it was accepted with a big scholarship from what I read, $32,000 to Utah State, Utah something, and dropped out after one semester. So this is from the Utah Board of Higher Education. In response to the arrest of suspected in killing of Charlie Kirk, we can confirm that Tyler James Robinson is a third-year student in the electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College. He briefly, one semester, attended Utah State University, one semester in 2021, and received concurrent enrollment credit through Utah Tech University while in high school, 2019-2021. So somebody who was smart, who got into Utah State with a very good score and a big scholarship, but then dropped out after a semester, which is strange. Although if you read many of the right-wing commenters, what are they going to say? They're telling you, oh no, he was radicalized in that one semester, and became a nut from that one semester and left. Probably more likely from one semester like that, smart kid, Probably mental health issues. But we don't know. We just don't know. We don't know. And he's going to technical school. Lives with his parents and is a gamer. He plays video games. Is, quite often on as a significant present on, from what we can understand, again, everything's tentative, Discord, 4channel, the stuff that where gamers hang out. We don't know what his politics are. Now, there were markings on the casings. And initially, and I think I reported this, initially the argument was these are pro-trans, Antifa markings. But the more I read about it, the more it seems like, and by the way, the FBI retracted that statement. They denied that it was pro-trans markings. And the more I read about it, the more it seems like the markings are references within games. In one particular game, what's the game here? I don't know what these names of these games are. Helldivers 2. So here are some of the references supposedly that were used on the casings. All memes and inside jokes supposedly from several communities on 4channel, Discord, and Reddit. One engraving says, notices bulge, OWO, what's this? This is a phrase popularized by Fury and roleplay groups online that has since become a major copy-paster in online game communities. Another one, hey fascist, catch. This is a renowned meme with a reference to the video game Helldivers 2. Oh, Bella Sio, Bella Sio, Bella Sio, 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 which is an anti-fascist song from Italy in World War II that has since been remixed into a song popular in many online gaming communities. If you read this, you are gay, I am AO. A phrase once again popularized in online communities for its similarity to old email chains and trolling posts on Facebook. So, again, I don't know. Maybe hey fascist catch actually referred to a bullet targeted at a fascist. I don't know. We just, at this point, this is clip heaven, Chandler says. Why is that? Equal to in reality says he plays Helldivers 2. Oh my God, I can't believe I had to hear Yaron say that. Anyway, I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just reading the news. Chandler says, I'm just joking about making out of context clips. So the point here is we don't yet know what this kid's political affiliation is. Now, the right is clearly saying he's a progressive. Of course he's a progressive. He's an anti-fascist. He called Charlie Kirk a fascist in some family conversation that was overheard that is being reported. So he's obviously a fascist. He's obviously a leftist. He's obviously a progressive. And that's what motivated him. He's a leftist. This is what drove him. Other people are saying, primarily people on the left, are saying, no. These are all phrases used by groypers. Now, some of you don't know what groypers are. These are people who follow Fuentes, racist, anti-Semitic, just disgusting Nick Fuentes, who is a real evil bastard. And Nick Fuentes, this is people who follow him, and Nick Fuentes is big in 4channel and some of the other. So anyway, everybody's blaming everybody. Nobody knows. I mean, Nick Fuentes might know because he went on a long rant last night about how we should embrace peace and Christianity is about love and love your enemy, and he doesn't believe in violence at all, never has. This is Nick Fuentes we're talking about. And it's all about love. Don't hate people who disagree with you. I mean, have you ever heard any commentator online who's more filled with hate than Nick Fuentes? Maybe he was trying to shield himself from what's already happening and what he already knows in terms of the identity of the shooter. I don't know. Again, speculation, fog of war, all of that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, what do I think is going on here? It's what I thought. I mean, I think it's what I thought yesterday. I don't know if I articulated it quite like this. I've said it in the past about other shooters. I mean, this guy has the profile, or at least from what we can see now, this guy has the profile of a school shooter. I think I said this. Yeah, I remember when I said this. I said this about the shooter who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. Same thing. A profile of somebody who could have become a school shooter. Alone in their mother's basement, playing video games, obviously going through some really horrific mental crisis, wants to make it to the front page of the newspaper, probably in this case doesn't quite want to die like a school shooter, obviously often kills themselves. Here, this is not suicidal. They want to be caught. They want to see the result. Maybe there's an element of politics here. Maybe he's some progressive who hates Charlie Kirk. That's quite possible. But it's also likely that even if that's true, this is some crazy, sick person who knows how to use a gun, wants to show the world, and who wants to be perceived as a hero, like from his video games, of which I know nothing. Yeah, he shot somebody, big deal. And notice, and this is true of Maggiano, the guy who shot the United Healthcare CEO. Notice how calm these people are after shooting somebody. Like, they're both amateurs, and yet they both were incredibly calm, set it up, shot the person. The guy shot the CEO of United Healthcare, shot him several times, I think, walked away, dumped the gun, very calm. Here, ran off the roof, jumped, hid the gun. That's spooky, and that's almost, these people are psychotic. We have to wonder, why did he drop up cottage? What happened? The stuff you wrote in the bullets, is it indeed out of video game stuff and online chat, or is it really political? The bad stuff he said about Charlie Kirk, is that because he's a leftist? Is that because he's just angry at the world? Where does it come from? We don't know. But there's no strong evidence that this guy has strong political opinions. There's no evidence that he belonged to any group. There's no conspiracy here. There's no leftist conspiracy to kill right-wing influencers. I mean, it's political violence, but I mean, look, even in the 60s, the actual people who did the killing were nobodies. It wasn't a conspiracy to kill civil rights leaders. It wasn't a conspiracy to kill the president. Probably, I mean, unless you believe in RFK. It wasn't some politically motivated. It was a crazy individual who had political beliefs maybe, but a crazy individual who went off and killed an individual. And that's exactly what's happening here. This could very well turn into a horror story if people interpret it as, no, this is the left did it, or the right did it, or this is justified. I mean, the scariest stuff, I mean, other than the actual murder, I mean, murder is always horrific, always scary, always pointless, and just gratuitous violence, and it's just horrifying. But you're going to get that. I mean, we live in a country where people have guns and where people are violent, and you're going to get that. The question is, how do we respond? So the scary part of this is the response by some that celebrated this. The people who thought this was great, good riddance. The people who have an indifference to violence, who are eager to celebrate it when it's their political opponent. That is what is scary. And then on the flip side, that's primarily the left. What's scary is the right willing to condemn everybody on the left for this act, kill them all, or round them up, or close down, shut down the Democratic Party, or I don't know what they actually intend, what the actual, goal is, what they actually want to do. I mean, here's Matt Walsh, published on the Daily Wire Twitter feed. Charlie tried to have a conversation with you on the left, and you killed him for it. You, the left, you killed him. Not this one individual. You, your tribe, killed him. You're killing us in our churches. There was this trans person who went and killed a bunch of Christian in a church. Okay, but you, it's the left is doing this. You try to kill our president. As far as I know, the guy who tried to kill President Trump was not part of any big leftist movement. He was, again, a lone shooter with mental problems who was trying to make a headline. You celebrate Charlie's death, that I agree with. It's time for good to fight back against evil. Now, what does he mean by fight back? Because the right is very vocal. If he means argue, if he means fight back intellectually, well, I mean, it's what Charlie did and what the right does all the time. They're constantly online fighting back. The right is not silent at all. So what does he mean by fighting back? What's different now? What has changed? Well, what's changed is he means with violence. He can't mean anything else. He means with violence. It's time we violently go after you. And I don't know if Matt Walsh thinks that he is going to do it, rally his people to do it, or if he thinks Donald Trump will do it for him. I don't know. But that's scary. So the left's indifference or support of the killing of Charlie, at least I'd say none of the big celebrity left, but we're talking about the students on campuses left. That's scary, horrifically scary. And the right's eagerness to get into battle, violence, in response to this is scary. So nothing's new. We have a loony left and a loony right. They're both nuts. I mean, nuts is not the right term because they're both philosophically evil and corrupt. Nuts is too much a mental health issue. So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I think we'll learn some stuff about Tyler, but I don't think it's going to come out that he's some passionate, politically motivated person. I think it's going to come out that he's a disturbed human being, and that, I mean, he might have political beliefs, but that's not the primary thing that motivated him. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting a lot of tweets saying, yeah, all these markings, they're from hell divers too, and common memes. So, let's see, anything else I want to say about this? Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he's a groiper. Nick Fuentes is a kind of person, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, he's yeah. This is a guy who wants to get your attention, and he got us our attention. He got the entire world's attention. All right, I have to mention this just as a because we're talking about Charlie Cook's assassination. We're going to talk about a number of issues related to this indirectly in a minute, or directly, but this one is weird, and I wouldn't mention it, but it relates to my favorite person on the planet, the President of the United States. And I'm just going to read it to you because I just want to keep at the forefront of your mind just how completely nuts Donald Trump really is. I mean, just not nuts in the sense of just bad, but just nuts. He's just not connected to reality. He's just not here. So this is I heard the video. This is a transcript of the video, short. A reporter asks the president, Mr. President, my condolences to you, sir. My condolences on the loss of your friend, Charlie Cook. How are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir? And this is Trump's response. I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They're just starting construction on the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty. Absolutely magnificent construction. We just started. So it'll get done very nicely, and it will be one of the best anywhere in the world, actually. I mean, what do you do about that? Right? He says he in other places he was very close to Charlie, and this affected him greatly, and now he's being asked about it. And first of all, he says he's been doing great. He's been, I think, very good. That's how he's been holding up, very good. And he wants to talk about a ballroom. He wants to talk about a ballroom. Doesn't want to talk about it. This guy's weird. Not in a good way. Not in a good way. He's not in reality. All right, I want to talk about some of the implications of what's going on and why I think this is such a big issue. The murder and some of the thinking, some of what's going to result. Now, it could have it could result in something positive in the sense of elevating this issue to the forefront. I mean, the Free Press ran a headline today. This is a statement by the editors, and I thought the headline was it's kind of sad, but I'll tell you what the headline is. It's Je suis Charlie. Je suis Charlie, of course, was the thing that everybody posted after the attack on Charlie Hebdo, after the murder of a number of cartoonists and people working for them at the headquarters of Charlie Hebdo in Paris in January of 2015. And it became a slogan of support for Charlie Hebdo. Je suis means I am Charlie. I am Charlie. Je suis Charlie. And at the time I was very critical of it because it's very easy to hold up a placard that says Je suis Charlie. But what does it mean to be Charlie? Well, for the cartoons, it means being willing to criticize Muhammad, being willing to draw cartoons that are offensive to Muslims, being willing to stand up to Islam and say, no, we are not going to bend. We are not going to accommodate you. We are not going to accept your irrationalities. This is the West, and here we make fun of whatever the hell we want to make fun of. And you, Muslims, deserve to be made fun of. You deserve to be made fun of because your customs, your beliefs are so anti-human, anti-Western, anti-rational. And because you are so violent. And we are cartoonists, we can't fight you the way we fight you is with cartoons. That would have made you a Je suis Charlie. That statement, going on in public, holding up a placard with the cartoon. You know, millions of people came out into the streets in Paris after the Charlie Hebdo. How many of them showed cartoons? How many of them had placards with cartoons? None of them, as far as I can remember. Maybe a few. But that makes you Je suis Charlie. Do what Charlie did. Stand up for the values Charlie represented. In the context of this, of Charlie Cook, I think the value here is speech. It's debate. Again, I've said it over and over again. I was not a fan of Charlie Cook's over the last few years. I disagree with him on lots of things, and I think he sold his soul for what would you call it? Popularity, for power. I've been criticized for saying he lost power, but I knew Charlie before and I knew Charlie after, and yes, I think he got blinded by the schmoozing with the Trumps. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Just like I don't like a lot of the cartoons that Charlie Hebdo put out there. I thought many of them were offensive, stupid. Many of them were anti-capitalist. You know, many of them were anti-Western. So I don't like. Charlie Hebdo is a left-wing magazine, and I disagree with much of what it publishes. Je suis Charlie represents not your agreement with the ideas, but the principle that they have the right to state them as they want to. Charlie Cook was, whoever this guy turns out to be ideologically, his killing was interpreted as an effort to silence him. And I think a lot of public figures, Ben Shapiro seems like is canceling a campus tour. I think a lot of people have taken this. The risk of speaking has now gone up. The risk of stating your opinion has now gone up. What would it mean to say Je suis Charlie? It would mean to speak, to go to campuses, to engage with the public, to state your controversial views, not to shun, not to be scared off. No, take the precautions that need to be taken, absolutely. But to make clear that whatever the motivations of this murderer was, silencing will not be the result. Silencing will not be what comes of this. Now, as the Utah governor, Spencer Cox, put it today, he said the murder of Charlie Cook is, quote, much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals, unquote. And I'd say specifically, it is an attack on free speech, because it's not necessarily an attack on, you know, it's on the particular things that Charlie Cook said, which might or might not be American ideals, but it's an attack on his willingness, ability to say them. And it happened on a college campus, which is doubly meaningful. A college campus is a place of ideas, of debate, of discussion. But it's also a place that over the last 20 years has seen people, 25 years, silenced over and over and over again. It is a place where its professors are teaching that speech is violence. If speech is violence, then violence can be used against violence, then it's okay to shut somebody up for speech. Universities are the hotbed of the anti-free speech movement. They are where anti-free speech lives and breathes. whether this guy was motivated by left or right, or wasn't motivated by anything, or was confused or sick or whatever it is, it turns out to be, or maybe he was a progressive, whatever it turns out to be, he was acting out the progressives, the far left university professors' agenda. It is their agenda. I don't think it's the left, if you count anybody left of center, but a part of the left hates speech, believes speech is violence, believe that what Charlie was doing was violence, that clearly was insulting, clearly was offending, but they truly believe that offense to a persecuted group, you can't be offended, or I can't be offended, because I'm not being persecuted. I can't be offended because my skin is the wrong color. I can't be offended because I have too much money. But if I were poor and with a darker skin, and I don't know, and from the other side of the border in Israel, then my offense, you offending me, would be violence against me. And therefore, what do you do when somebody commits violence against you? You use violence in self-defense. So, what is being taught at our universities is that violence to silence people is sometimes right. This is the justification for rioting and not allowing a speaker to speak, which is violence. This is justification and the rationalization for Antifa. Using violence against speakers to silence them, as they did against me when they rushed the stage at King's College and took away the microphones and tried to take over the event. That was violence. Indeed, one of the security guys who was at the door landed up in hospital. So, this is the outcome. This is the consequence. Now, I mean, again, I'm not sure he was radicalized by these people. That's not the point. The point is that these people, these professors, these university professors and the students that they teach now are supporters of this violence, encouraging this kind of violence by the very nature of the ideas that they teach. And the way to fight that? The way to fight that is to speak. It's to not let them silence you. It's to keep going to campuses, to keep going and speaking, to keep engaging with people. And in particular, it's important to go on campuses and talk about free speech. Call these professors out. Call them for what they are doing. Refuse to be silenced. Stand up to the Antifa leftist bastards. Refuse to let them silence you. This should be a call to all those who believe in free speech to go out there and do more. Speak out more. And make the point. We won't be silenced. And we will continue to present an alternative voice to what your professors are teaching you. Because what they're teaching you is anti-human, it's anti-life, it's anti-civilization, it's evil and wrong. It's evil and wrong what these professors are teaching you. Indeed, any professor who teaches that speech is violence should not be a professor, should not have a job. So, it's scary times. If you look at polls of students, free speech rankings, the Foundation for Individual Rights, which is a great organization around free speech, does a free speech ranking of colleges, and as part of that, it does surveys. And it found that two-thirds of students at these universities now say that using violence to stop a campus speech can be acceptable. Well, how much violence? What's the level of violence? It turns out that some of them think that shooting somebody and killing them is appropriate. Now, but it's not just college campuses. In a national survey conducted by the same organization, respondents were shown a list of 8 reading from an op-ed that was just published in the Wall Street Journal. Respondents were shown a list of 8 politically divisive and potentially offensive statements, like all whites are racist oppressors, America got what it deserved on 9/11, January 6th was a peaceful protest. They were then asked to select the statement they found most offensive from the list. Following the selection, respondents were asked whether using violence to stop a speech advocating the idea they selected as most offensive is never, rarely, sometimes, or always acceptable. The good news is nearly 80% of Americans reject efforts to silence speech they find personally offensive. Large majorities of Democrats, 77%, Independents, 80%, Republicans, 82%, all saying violence is never accepted. This is outside the universities. The bad news is that the story changes dramatically when looking across generations. While 93% of baby boomers and 86% of Generation X say violence is never acceptable, only 71% of millennials and this is shocking, only 58% of Generation Z do. And it makes no difference if they enrolled in college or not. It makes no difference if they're enrolled in college. Generation Z has been raised to believe that speech is violence. They've been raised to believe that violence to silence is okay. So this is not just academia. It's our schools, it's our video games, it's the stories we tell each other. Violence is acceptable to Generation Z in a way that it's not acceptable to previous generations. Now, maybe we were all like that when we were young. I don't think this, this kind of survey, unless they have it for many, many years in the past, can correct for that. Maybe it's the case. Maybe there's a youth bias and young people are always more pro-violence than older people. That is certainly possible. But it's not obvious. This political polarization, the kind of language our politicians use, the kind of macho, show-offy that our the people like Nick Fuentes and not to put them in the same category, but similar category, Matt Walsh and others who are aggressive and use language of violence. And use language, more than that, use language that vilifies either side in ways that are, I think, often irrational. We live in a political climate that encourages people to treat their opponents, other people, as threats, as violent threats. And as our rhetoric increases, and Donald Trump is chief among those, I think, who encourage this, but as the polarization increases, and as the pundits on both sides become more emotionalist, use more the rhetoric of violence, it's not surprising that young people view the only way to deal with their opposition in terms of violence. there is a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do. And the work is ideological, philosophical, fundamental. We need to remind people, or maybe to teach them for the first time, the values that made the West, the values that made it possible for them to sit in their basement playing video games. The values that made us wealthy and successful, the values that made America, America. And the value of debate and speech. Now, you know, the fact that you have a right to speak doesn't mean what you say is good, doesn't mean what you say is valid, doesn't mean what you say even deserves a hearing. But the way to take away the desire to hear is to walk away. It's not to shoot somebody. It's not to slap somebody. It's not to yell to stop him from speaking. It's to walk away or speak against him. I disagree with Charlie about a lot of things. And the way to deal with that is to speak up against him. I would have been happy to go on a stage to debate Charlie. And use whatever forum to speak. Speak, argue, write, teach. And it's incumbent of those of us who believe in the value of free speech to start doing that. And I worry that on the right and on the left today, maybe it should be on the left because in many respects they started it, and on the right today, they do not value speech. Even some of the people on the right who claim to be defenders of free speech do not value speech. They're defenders of speech they like, of speech they want. So, I mean, this should be a call of arms to all of us, all of you, all of those who believe in the Enlightenment, who believe in reason, who believe in rational argument, who believe in using rational argument in debate to convince and who abhor the use of violence other than in self-defense. All right, that is my spiel and a call to arms, a call to action with regard to free speech. It's what we need more of. More people standing up in defense of this essential right that protects all other rights. All right, also related to the assassination is now a, maybe a sense that people have that the kind of people that Trump has nominated to lead some of our law enforcement agencies maybe are not very competent. I mean, there were a number of missteps during this investigation, or at least it seems that way. False information, leaks, but with wrong information, having to backtrack, arresting the wrong people. If not for this family who actually took responsibility and handed in their son, who knows how long this would have taken, given kind of the disorganized, haphazard way that this was all handled. And the ability of the people at the top of the FBI to do their job has now been put into question. When you appoint Kash Patel to run the FBI, to be the FBI director, no law enforcement experience, none, zero, zilch. A critic of the FBI, a MAGA conspiracy theorist who has zero, zilch qualifications to run the agency. Well, surprise, surprise, he doesn't do a very good job at it. When you appoint RFK to run Health and Human Services, don't be surprised if bad stuff happens. When the deputy of Kash Patel is a podcaster, a bad one at that. Again, a emotionalist, right-wing, MAGA conspiracy theory nutcase. He's deputy director of the FBI. Knows nothing about law enforcement. Knows nothing about how to run an investigation, how to manage people. Neither of these guys have managed people. I mean, the whole thing is, as somebody, somebody called it, it was a Mickey Mouse operation. Even Chris Rufo is now critical of Kash Patel. Chris Rufo, who is a huge supporter of everything Donald Trump does and is a real partisan of the right. Here's what he wrote. I'm grateful that Utah authorities have captured the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination and think it is time for Republicans to assess whether Kash Patel is the right man to run the FBI. He performed terribly in the last few days, and it's not clear whether he has the operational expertise to investigate, infiltrate, and disrupt the violent movements or whatever ideology that threatens the peace in the United States. Now, I don't know what Chris Rufo did, what his position was when Kash Patel was nominated, but it was obvious at the time, and I mentioned it, that Kash Patel had none of the operational expertise necessary to investigate, infiltrate, and disrupt violent movements. He had none of the qualifications to run the FBI. That was obvious from day one. But they went along, just like they went along with RFK, just like they went along with Bondi, and a bunch of other unqualified individuals to run parts of the government, important parts of the government, FBI, Department of Justice. Chris continues. This is on a different trend. There are two ways forward. First, we enter a spiral of violence which could be catastrophic for the country. Second, federal law enforcement makes a credible plan to resolve the civil order, restore the civil order, initiates a campaign to disrupt domestic terror networks in all 50 states, and sets them in motion with the goal of preventing further bloodshed. All of which can and must be done in a principled, legal, nonpartisan manner. I mean, this is so refreshing from Chris Rufo, who just yesterday was hyper partisan and suggesting of extra legal stuff to do. So I'm glad Chris Rufo has been brought in line somehow, or brought himself into line. But here's the thing, and this is important. If you read this, you would think that behind the latest act of violence, the church killing by the trans, the killing of Charlie Kirk, and many of the other political violence, even the killing by somebody from the right of the two Minnesota state officials, that there was some, how does he call it? Some terror network that made all that happen. But in every single one of the cases, with the exception of January 6th, where it was an actual network that made it happen, but with the exception of January 6th, every single one of these other events, whether they were committed by somebody from the right or somebody from the left, did not involve a network. They involved lone, crazy individuals. And maybe not crazy, maybe evil is the right word. Lone, evil individuals. So, what is the damage being inflicted on the country right now by domestic terror networks? Now, if they exist, and I'm sure they do, by all means disrupt them and do whatever you can to neutralize them. But in writing it like this, it's suggestive that what's happened to Charlie Cook and what's happened before Charlie Cook, other acts of violence, were a consequence of terror networks, and they're not. They're just not. He continues. We would be wise to take a moment and ask whether Kash Patel has what it takes to get this done. I think the answer is clear, no. I've been on the phone the last few days with many conservative leaders, all of whom wholeheartedly support the Trump administration, and none of whom are confident that the current structure of the FBI is up to this task. All I can say is good for Chris Rufo for saying this. I disagree with Chris Rufo on a lot of things, just like it did with Charlie Cook, but disagree with him on a lot of things, and even with some of the implications of what he's writing here. But the fact that he's come out against Kash Patel is good, it's right, it's just, and good for him for doing it, because the fact is that usually these tribalists toe the tribal line. And Chris, as one of the tribal leaders, is now establishing a new line. So maybe there's a chance Kash Patel is out if even Chris Rufo is going after him. All right. I mean, here's a headline in the Wall Street Journal from this morning. Law enforcement officials sow confusion on manhunt for Cook shooter. Contradictory public statements risk undermining confidence in investigation, law enforcement veterans say. I think that's probably a reasonable assessment. All right, I had a couple of other stories, including soybeans. Okay, let's run through these, and then I will turn to your super chat questions and run through those. It is getting late over here, so I'll do these ones pretty quickly. I think the headline on the demographics is that the world is going to shrink. The world is going to shrink sooner and faster than you think, than anybody thinks, if current trends continue. And that's a big if. Big if. Only about 1/3 of the world's people live in countries where fertility is high enough to keep the population growing. Only 1/3. And even in those places, rates are rapidly falling. This is from an Economist magazine article. Africa still produces many more babies than the global norm, but it is no exception to the rule of faster declines than expected. Now, what this means is the world's population is likely to peak much earlier than experts had been predicting, and at much lower levels. I wonder where Paul Ehrlich is, who predicted the population, the hundreds of millions of people dying of starvation and the population explosion. Rather than climbing until 2084, the United Nations currently foresees to 10.3 billion people. Experts are now saying that it'll probably grow in the 2050s and never exceed, it would stop growing, in the 2050s. So that's 30 years earlier, and will never exceed 9 billion. And at that point, the world population will start to shrink, something it has not done since the 14th century, when the Black Death wiped out perhaps 1/5 of humanity. Black Death was an interesting phenomenon. It's a case of invasion from Asia into Europe. The rats invaded, and they brought the disease from Asia. Anyway, in 2050s, that's 30 years from now, population of the world will peak. Will I be still around? I might still be around when it peaks. That'd be cool. And this is, the U.S. is not free from this. I mean, U.S. population growth is going to slow to a crawl in the next few decades. Fertility rates have declined. Net migration is shrinking. Less immigrants. And Congressional Budget Office are now projecting that deaths will exceed births in the United States in 2031. That's like right around the corner. And that has been brought forward. It just 8 months ago, they were predicting 2033. By 2055, the U.S. population will be about 367 million. up from 350 million today. But in the past, it was thought that the US population would be much higher in the 2050s. From, we're basically going at, zero, and unless immigration picks up a lot or childbirth increases a lot, which is unlikely, this is where we are. And population of the earth will start shrinking within most of your lifetimes. All right, soybeans. This is just a cool story, predictable story that you all know. Soybean manufacturers about to harvest tens of millions of tons of soybean. U.S. produces, huge quantities of soybeans. Soybeans are used primarily to fatten pork, to fatten pigs and chickens. You eat a lot of soybeans through the food chain, not directly. Well, anyway, the largest buyer of soybeans in the world is China. They buy huge quantities of soybeans. And China had been one of the biggest buyers of American agricultural products, in particular soybeans. As Chinese became middle class, they started to be able to afford to eat pork and chicken, and the appetite for pork and chicken grew significantly. And, the biggest pig farms and chicken farms in the world in China, and they need soybeans, and they were buying soybeans from American farmers, and American farmers were doing quite good business with the Chinese, selling them soybeans. Now, also remember that soybeans are grown in Trump country, in the Midwest, that votes for Trump. So China realized during the 2018 tariff wars that one weapon they could have against Trump is to stop buying soybeans. And that then soybean farmers would, lobby Trump to make a deal with China, which happened back then. China promised to buy huge quantities of soybeans, which they never did. Anyway, this year, Chinese buyers haven't booked any soybean purchases. They're not buying any soybean purchases from the United States. You can grow soybeans in a lot of places, and it turns out Brazil makes a lot of soybeans, and they have ramped up production specifically for the Chinese. And the Chinese are buying the soybeans from Brazil. And Chinese negotiators are using soybeans as a carrot to dangle in front of Trump in order to get Trump to lower tariffs on Chinese imports. In the meantime, the farmers are suffering. They will love Trump. Of course, they voted for Trump, and Trump said he was going to place tariffs on China, so they kind of knew what they were voting for. So I don't feel too sorry for them. But this is the kind of disruptions the trade war results in. It's completely unnecessary. It's completely unwarranted for. Again, if China is an enemy of the United States, stop trading with it. Tariffs are just a unproductive, disruptive, and distortive way in which to try to penalize soybean farmers? China? Or who are we penalizing exactly? Not clear. China's doing okay. They're just buying it from Brazil. Nothing's changed. Finally, I came across this really good story in the Wall Street Journal, or editorial really, that I thought was worth just sharing the sentiment of it, and then we'll go on. And the sentiment of, do you remember all those people who told us that if we bombed Iran, if we did anything to Iran, or if Israel got involved with Iran, all hell would break loose in the world? Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes, said over and over again, we can't do this, we can't attack Iran, we can't do it, it won't, God, what would Iran, do you know the damage done to the United States if we bomb Iran, or if we do anything to Iran? He was the guy who negotiated the deal And part of the reason to negotiate a deal for the Obama administration was because you can't use military force against Iran. Iran is too powerful. It's too strong. It could do unbelievable harm. Do you remember Tucker Carlson telling us that, I mean, what did he tweet? He tweeted, the first week of a war with Iran could easily kill thousands of Americans. An attack on Iran could very easily become a world war, and we'd lose. Tucker Carlson. I just want to remind you that no Americans have died since the United States has attacked Iran. The world has not ended. Iran has been, to some extent, cowed. They are now making noises about wanting to negotiate with the United States and wanting to negotiate with Europeans, and they're willing to have the International Atomic Energy Agency maybe come and do inspections after all, and please don't put more sanctions on us, and no, we'll behave, we promise we'll behave, we'll do good. Now, I don't believe a word of what they say, and neither should any negotiator with them. But the reality is always that the way to deal with thugs, the way to deal with brutes, the way to deal with people who understand, who deal with violence, is with violence. The way to deal with a bully is to fight him, is to stand up to him, is to give him a piece of his own medicine. And in the case of Iran, they were always, I've said this for years, decades really, they were always a paper tiger. So another pat on my back. I called this. They were a paper tiger. And they've been shown as such. And there was an article today by Roel Mark Gerich and Ray Tucker basically making this point. And I thought, this is great. I mean, the reality is that Iran was shocked by how badly they did. They were shocked by Israel's capabilities. They were shocked that the United States had the audacity to bomb them. And they are significantly less of a threat to Americans, Israel today, than they were before the 12-day war with them. All right. That, my friends, is the news for today, September 12th, 2025. We are doing really, really well on the Super Chat, but we are still short about $83. So I just want to encourage you to, four $20 questions will get us there. And in spite of the fact that it's 11:35 here, I will continue for this. So please, stickers are a great way. That way I have no questions, right? So please consider doing stickers. Wes did a $50 sticker. Thank you, Wes. Almost daily with Wes. It's fantastic, the support he provides. Who else? Who else don't have a lot of stickers today? Interesting, strange, unusual. Is Wes the only sticker? Yeah, Wes is the only sticker I can see. Wow. Very unusual. Anyway, that means there are a lot of you out there that could be doing a sticker. $2, $1, $5, $10. We only need to make up $83. We can do it very easily. Trade value for value. You're listening to the show. You must get something out of the show. Express that thing that you get out of the show. I got under the YouTube. Somebody yesterday, Dave, thank you. Dave just did $50, so now only $33. Thank you, Dave, really appreciate it. I got a comment under the video from yesterday saying, I've been listening to your show daily from 2018. 2018, that is a long time ago. And I finally decided to support the show. And I become a Patreon supporter. So thank you to whoever wrote that and whoever just became a Patreon supporter. I really, really appreciate that. You too can offer value for value. Those of you who listen to the show regularly, offer value for value by becoming a Patreon supporter. If you do so at $10 or more, you can also get the podcast without any commercials, commercial-free podcast. So go for it. I see we've got a flurry of stickers, so thank you. Thank you to Esoteric Economy, RDF, John Bales, Paul, Neo, and Barry. Thank you guys. And we're only $5 away, you see? It's like that we can get it done. You guys are great. Oh, by the way, I complained to Twitter, and not to Twitter, to YouTube, about the fact that when we do those goals, it doesn't seem to count them all. And they said they would get back to me, and they'll try to figure out what's going on. They seemed surprised. I may be the only one who's complained about it. All right. I guess you can see that can of Raid over there. There is a mosquito in the room. I did see him earlier. I didn't zap him. I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't kill him. I couldn't, nothing. And I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him since. I once in a while feel like maybe he's biting me, but it doesn't happen. So who knows? All right, let's see. So let's go to our super chat. I'll start with the question was just, thank you, Robert, for the sticker. I'll start with the question that was just asked because Silvanos put $100 behind it. So I have to start with that because I go from the top down, basically in terms of dollars, at least for the above $20 questions. All right, Silvanos, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. He says, hi, Yaron. Thanks for the continued coverage of the Kirk subject. Could you elaborate on why it's popular to call Kirk a fascist, whether he was or wasn't? Well, I think it was popular, it's basically popular on the left to call anybody on the right a fascist. And, that is a consequence of the fact that the right wants to impose their values on you. Now, so does the left, right? So does the left. But the left sits on some kind of moral high horse, and they believe that inflicting their values on you, let's say on economics, is not really an infringement of rights. They really, really believe that, right? It's not really economics is not an issue of rights, and that it's but the right wants to inflict their moral values on them. They want to inflict their views about morality and their views about individual behavior, and that they consider fascist. There are also elements on the right that are fascist. There are also elements on the right that are authoritarian. There are elements on the right that are racist. There are elements on the right that are economically fascist. That is, and Trump is one of them, in that the government should take economic positions in companies, that the government should, as it has, own the means of production. That the government should, that the president should be able to intervene in any economic transaction happening anyway and have his way economically. Those, I don't think Trump is a fascist, but certainly those are fascist proposals. Now, I don't think Charlie Kirk was a fascist. Charlie Kirk was a right-winger who certainly was wanted to impose his moral, his religious code on all of us. He wanted to impose it through government. He had definitely was willing to use the government in order to impose his particular view of the world on all of us by coercion. He was not a capitalist. He was not a free market enlightenment type. He was an interventionist, and he was all for significant executive power. But he was also stood for free speech. He also supported elections. I don't think he denied that Trump lost the 2020 election, although I'm not sure. I don't think Charlie was a fascist. Now, he was moving in a more authoritarian direction. He was moving in a direction of more executive power. But look, the left throws the fascist accusation out to everybody they disagree with. They call me a fascist all the time. They certainly did when they demonstrated against me. They call Ayn Rand a fascist and have for decades now called Ayn Rand a fascist. Anybody they disagree with is a fascist. And often, if they perceive you as supporting capitalism, and I don't think they can tell the difference between cronyism and capitalism. Capitalism to them is fascist. It's the authoritarian rule of the moneyed interests. So for all those reasons, they use the term fascist. But again, Charlie was not, and I say that, again, as a critic of his ideas. He was not because he really did, I think, believe in free speech. And he really did, I mean, again, he had a lot of bad ideas, and I don't know what he would have been like if he'd become a politician and run for president one day, which I think was his ambition, and I think he would have done. I'm not sure what kind he would have been. I'm not sure how. Depends, I think, on the state of American politics at that point. But yeah, I mean, it's a phrase the left throws at. And by the way, the right does the same thing, and I know some objectivists who do the same thing. Every leftist is a communist. Anybody who voted for the Democratic Party is a communist. I am called regularly on Facebook. Facebook is the only place I think this happens. I don't know. I'm sure other places too. But I said he did believe in free speech. I said that. I said that more than once. I don't know who you're listening to, Ann. But this happens all the time on Facebook. I'm called a communist. I'm called a leftist. Why? Because I don't like Trump. Because I think Trump is really, really bad. Because I didn't vote Republican. Therefore, I am a leftist and I'm a communist. So the throwing around of labels like that, communist, people on the right throwing at the left, again, some objectivists throwing at the left, they're all communists. They're not. Anybody who voted for against Trump is a communist. And then the left calling everybody who voted for Trump or anybody who doesn't support their cause a fascist. It's tribal, it's tribalism. And I know I get accused of saying this all the time, it's both sides are guilty of this. Again, the left started it, I believe that. In many respects, the left started it because the left dominates the intellectual high ground. But the right responds to the left with the same infantile, the same irrational, the same postmodern arguments that the left starts with. So, hopefully, that is a clarifying answer, Silvanus. All right. Richard, wow, Richard has just done $250. Thank you, Richard. At least, maybe there's more out there. $250. So Richard says, thank you for your work, Yaron. Loving regular shows. Just got married yesterday. Courthouse only. Congratulations. That is fantastic. I hope you have a fantastic, wonderful, long life together of love. Do you still officiate weddings? I haven't in a long time, but I'm certainly open to it. What's your rate? God, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Wherever it is, business class travel, nice hotel, wherever this is, and something on top of that. I don't know. Richard, email me. Maybe you have already. I'll think about it and let you know. I'll think about it and let you know. I'm happy to do it. Put it that way. I'm not going to charge a rate that makes it impossible to do. I usually, so here's my rate for a talk, and this is about as time consuming as a talk, I guess, maybe less prep, which is $4,000, right? So something in that ballpark. Richard goes on to say, we still plan to do a large ceremony with family and friends. That's great. Do something fun. This is the thing about weddings. Here's the thing about weddings. I'm glad you got married in a courthouse ceremony, because that just gets it over with. It's a done deal. You got the kind of legal stuff out of the way. When you plan a wedding ceremony, move away from convention. It drives me nuts. All weddings are exactly the same. They go through the same. There's a list of things you have to do. There's a certain process. Just do something imaginative. Break a few rules. Have fun. So many people do it where it's so nerve-wracking before and during the wedding that they're not having fun. And because it's so scripted, the audience isn't having fun, because it's the same as every other wedding. So to the extent that you can think of something different, something to really celebrate you and who you are and what you love and what you value, then do that. Anyway, the $50 question is exactly the same. So thank you, Richard. I really, really appreciate the support. I haven't seen you around. I mean, you come once in a while, and you always are very supportive. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, I'd love to do it. And let me know what you think is reasonable. And we will do it. Oh, Richard continues, another $100. Thank you, Richard. My wife is a non-citizen and the woman of my dreams. That's amazing to hear. Immigration is a very important issue for me, obviously. Do you have any insights on marital green card applications? I'm a lawyer, but experience with receivables, finance, cap markets doesn't really help with this. No, but I have a recommendation for a lawyer. My cousin, my first cousin, really the only first cousin I have a decent relationship with, not otherwise any relationship with. My cousin is an immigration lawyer in Los Angeles, and she's very good. And she has represented, people from the institute, because I've referred them to her, and she's had good results. And she's a really nice person. So she's the kind of person you want in this kind of law, where she'll hold your hand and walk you through the process, which is an ugly, unnecessarily complicated and stupid process. She'll walk you through it, and she'll give you all the information and everything. So again, drop me an email about the ceremony, and drop me an email about this, and I'll put you in touch with her. I think you'll be happy with her. I think she does good work. She does good work. She got Augustina, who just became a U.S. citizen. I think it was my cousin who had her case and dealt with him. So, all right, and again, congratulations, and woman of my dreams that's what I like to hear. That's fantastic. All right. Okay. Not your average algorithm. A two-part question. Part one. A part of me thinks without objectivism becoming a significant bigger force in the culture, I don't see how this gets turned around. But if you look historically, inflation, crime, political assassinations were far worse in the 1970s. Yes, they were. Where's the part two? You didn't label part two, or did you? Sorry, I'm looking for the part two. Maybe there isn't a part two. Oh, there it is. Then we had 40 years of prosperity since Reagan Revolution without objectivism growing much. Jimmy Carter Revolution. You got to start giving credit to Jimmy Carter, really. So, a few things. One, you're absolutely right about the 70s. 60s and 70s were far worse in terms of crime, murder rates, in terms of political violence, in terms of a lot of these things. What was different? The politics was less confrontational, less divisive. So for example, a lot of the deregulation that led to the prosperity happened under Jimmy Carter and was led in Congress by Democrats like Kennedy, who worked with Republicans to pass massive deregulatory bills. Massive deregulatory bills. So you got all the really major deregulation happened under Jimmy Carter, and a Congress that was dominated by Democrats who worked with Republicans in a bipartisan way to get good, relatively speaking, good legislation passed. Second, Ayn Rand was influential. I know nobody thinks that. The Objectivist movement wasn't big, but she was alive and she was influential. People listened to her. People read Atlas Shrugged. A lot of people did. And a lot of people in government did. Alan Greenspan was an economic advisor to Ford, and he was respected also among Democrats and among the economic advisors to Jimmy Carter. So there's a sense in which Ford started the deregulation. So it was an era that there was objectivist influence in politics, and even now there is, right? I mean, look at Alex Epstein. So, you're right. We recovered from that, and I think we can recover from this. But the challenge we place today is that we've never had a president like Donald Trump. We've never had a movement like MAGA with the kind of influence that they have. That's the right. On the left, the new left of the 1960s that was really, really bad is much more established and mature now. Their children and grandchildren are the professors at the universities who are much more sophisticated, entrenched, dominating than the new left was in the 60s and 70s. So both on the right and on the left, things are much worse. By the way, I never said Jimmy Carter was a good president. I said he started the deregulation that led to the prosperity, which is a factual truth. So it's not clear where a Ronald Reagan comes from. There's nobody in the Republican Party today who's a Ronald Reagan. And if there was, they wouldn't get elected. Take Paul Ryan, who I think is the closest to Ronald Reagan in politics, who was in politics. Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan can't get elected today. I mean, I would vote for Paul Ryan as president in a heartbeat. I think he's better than pretty much anybody out there. He's got his problems, and he's sold out, and he's certainly no, objectivist, no capitalist, but he's better than pretty much everybody else in the Republican Party, and was when he was a congressman. At least, theoretically, that is, at least ideologically, in terms of what he said, not always what he did. He can be in politics today. He has no home. Even somebody like Justin Amash, who again I disagree with on foreign policy and a few other things, he's not a Republican. He couldn't win a Republican election. So I don't know where the savior come from. There's no movement to deregulate other than in energy. There's no movement for economic liberty. Nikki Haley has no influence. There's no rational voices, not on the left and not on the right, in politics, because both the left and the right are beholden to the activists, and the activists are MAGA or crazy left, far left, egalitarians. There's no sane Republicans of significance, and there's sane Democrats of significance. So, yeah. I don't see how you get out of the mess we're in. It's heading towards authoritarianism through and through, one way or the other. We're heading towards authoritarianism. And we might transition through a period of leftist craziness, but at the end of the day, we will end up with some kind of proto-fascist regime that's religious and patriotic and America first and whatever, and it will be a nightmare. But, yep, we could be surprised. Somebody could come out of the woodwork, and the American people could rally, and MAGA could fall apart, and the left could lose its hold on the universities, and a lot of things could happen. A lot of things could happen. And, gold at 3,600, as one of Freeman says, suggests that financial markets, at least people who buy gold, are worried about the state of the world. It's not an inflation hedge. It's the end of the world hedge. And the end of the world hedge is worth a lot of money right now, because there's a lot of people worried about the end of the world. Not that I think the end of the world is coming, because I don't think we're quite there. All right, PB. Conspiracy theory. Kirk assassinated by Israel for suggesting Netanyahu gave October 7th stand-down order. Can you please steelman this theory and respond? These theories are a trap for well-meaning young people. I need help defending reality. No, you can't steelman the theory. The theory is arbitrary and baseless. It means nothing. There is zero evidence to suggest that's true. Zero. You cannot steelman a theory based on no evidence. You cannot steelman a theory that is completely arbitrary. Everybody should listen to Leonard Peikoff's talk on this, on the arbitrary being non-cognition, having no cognitive value. And therefore you can't debate it. You can't argue it. I can't prove a negative. So, and I can't steelman it. There is no argument that Israel did this. There's no conceivable idea. This is just pure emotionalist drivel driven by primarily anti-Semitism. So it's not even worth engaging with. People who buy into stuff like this, they are, they're mindless. What are you engaging with? It's not a trap. The trap is if you engage. This is zero. The only thing to say is, show me the evidence. Not random theory. Show me the evidence. I mean, there's no steelmaning this. There's no evidence. There's nothing to steelman. We don't have any evidence that Netanyahu gave an October 7th stand-down order. Zero, zilch evidence of that. That's just somebody made up. And there's no evidence that the guy who shot, who was just arrested, is an Israeli agent. There's just no evidence. There's nothing. Zero. No cognition. No, nothing. You can't deal with arbitrary assertions that people make. You have to just call it, that's an arbitrary assertion. It's stupid. I'm not even going to respond. And walk away. And tell other people to do the same. Raz, I saw a post on Twitter just now of an AI picture mocking Charlie Kirk for being assassinated. And the majority of the comments are outraged and calling for the FBI to get involved over it. So already seeing the reality of what you are saying now. Yeah, I mean, FBI getting involved, that's a violation of free speech. You can mock. But people being outraged, that's good that they're outraged. But asking the FBI, I mean, this is the real danger, is that Trump decides to do something about the violence. What exactly can you do? I mean, how about the security people start doing their job and looking at roofs? Like the Secret Service screwed up on that assassination attempt. Now, very similarly, was on a roof. He could be seen on a roof. Why was there, and Charlie Kirk had security there, private security, why was nobody in the security looking at the roofs? That's that's what needs to be done. Roof check. Have somebody thoughtful. Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Rez, for the 50 Australian dollars. All right, let's go. We've got a bunch of questions from Andrew, so we'll cover them. Yep. Andrew, I always felt uneasy with objectivists like yourself, making it seem like we need to promote drawings of Muhammad. It's not my way to insult other people's gods. Even though it's nonsense, seems gratuitous. Where am I wrong? I mean, you're wrong on a number of different levels. One is, oh wait, where do I start? I'm trying to think where to start, because I got a lot of these questions when we did the cartoons. What was the purpose of showing the cartoons? The purpose of showing the cartoons was not to insult the gods. Well, it was, the purpose of the person doing the cartoons was twofold. One, it was to show how stupid worshiping a god is. And that's a good purpose. And that's what cartoons are for. They're quick, easy, quick-witted, witty ways in which you can indeed, just make fun of something. And there's nothing that suggests that if you make fun of somebody's politics and you make fun of somebody's behavior and you make fun of somebody's, I don't know, whatever, you shouldn't make fun of their religion. So I think drawing cartoons of making fun of religion are great. Now, I wouldn't do it. I'm not interested in cartoons because they're not intellectual. They're not philosophical. It's not my method. If I want to attack Christianity, I'm not going to attack them through a cartoon. I'll attack them through a book. Working on that. But the reason I promoted the Muhammad cartoons, I mean, literally promoted them, and promoted the Charlie Hebdo cartoons, was the second reason the cartoonists drew the Muhammad cartoons. And that was to show that there's no free speech. To show what happens. To shame the West. Because it's not just cartoons. Europe has taken down paintings of Muhammad because you're not allowed to show an image of the Prophet. So museums all over Europe have taken down paintings if Muhammad was depicted in them. Plays, musicals, operas, books have basically been taken down, not by the government, but voluntarily taken down out of fear or out of a false respect. And the whole point of the cartoons was to show this is wrong. You should be able to express yourself free of fear of from these people. And all you Europeans who are doing this, you're betraying your culture, you're betraying civilization. So the whole point here was to illustrate that. And my point of showing the cartoons was to say they're just cartoons. You don't have to like them. I don't like some of them. They're just cartoons. But you should never be afraid to show a cartoon. You should never silence yourself if you want to draw a cartoon out of fear. You should never be in a situation where your government won't protect you from those who threaten your life because you want to draw a cartoon, or because you want to write a book, or because you want to sing an opera, or because you want to make a speech. So I wasn't promoting the cartoons, although some of them were quite clever. The turban, the one with Muhammad with the turban and a bomb inside of it. Yeah, people, that's a very clever cartoon. This is at a time of suicide bombings where people are using Muhammad, his ideology, his book, to justify walking into crowds and blowing themselves up. Why wouldn't you want a cartoon showing that and ridiculing that? So what I wanted to do was make the point that these needed to be seen because they were being banned, because they were being silenced, because they were being attacked, because people were self-censoring. So it was a statement about free speech, not a statement about cartoons. Andrew says, the youth have been taught that emotions are tools of cognition, that feelings are criteria of truth. To mistake feelings for thought will only exacerbate emotional difficulties and cause more potential for violence. Yes, again, been saying this for over a decade now. This boils down to elevating emotions above reason, educating people to value their emotions above reason. The whole idea of microaggressions that the left was freaked out about 10 years ago, and offensive speech is all about emotions. It's not about reason. If somebody says something that offends you, walk away or argue back. But the fact that you feel bad does not give you an excuse to silence the person. David Arsenault says, who's your favorite actor and why isn't it John Malkovich? Because it isn't John. My favorite actor, Charles Laughton, certainly one of my favorite actors. In modern times, I love Denzel Washington. I think he's an excellent actor. So those are two. I'm sure I could come up with more. I don't have one favorite. Andrew, I agree with the value of a gut feeling, but being epistemologically responsible, one must never automatically trust that one's gut feeling is signaling rational self-interest. Can you speak to the value of checking your gut? Yeah, I mean, you should always check your gut, particularly when you have time to do it, because if you don't have time to do it, you don't do it. You have to act in some situations, and all you might have is the gut feeling, and then you just have to act. So it is the case that sometimes you don't check the gut because you don't have time to check it. But if you do have time, it's always important to check the gut feeling because you don't know everything that went into it. It's automatic, it's fast, it's quick, it hasn't been evaluated. Stepping back and evaluating it is always something worth doing. It's what reason requires. It's what living a rational life requires. Living by gut feelings is going to screw you over. It's not self-interested because you'll often make mistakes. Some of those gut feelings will be based on wrong evaluations, based on emotions that are not justifiable in reality. Rez, are you irritated more by people like Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk who defend liberty on a false basis of mysticism, or by the left who are opposed to liberty as such? Do you see one side as more dangerous than the other? So I think you're mischaracterizing Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, and certainly some of the worse. I don't know, Walsh, Matt Walsh, and some of these others. I don't consider them defending liberty. They're not. If you're anti-abortion, you're not defending liberty. I don't care what else you defend. You're not defending liberty. If you think that I don't know, self-sacrifice and Jesus on a cross and the morality of Christianity should be taught and taught and required by government schools, if you think the Ten Commandments should be in every classroom, if you believe that the separation of church and state should not exist, you're not for liberty. So I don't agree with the premise. Now, you could say some people are better than others. I think Ben Shapiro is better than Charlie Cook in his defense of, at least, economic liberty. I think Ben Shapiro has been consistent, mostly. He compromises and he whips out here and there. But Charlie Cook gave up on economic liberty and economic freedom on capitalism and followed a Trumpist line. So is he a defender of liberty? No. It's not just that he's a bad defender of liberty on the wrong premise. He's not. So I think Ben Shapiro better than Charlie Cook. I rank them based on how consistent they are in the defense of those areas of freedom that we believe in. But I don't think that much of the right today, right now, believes in liberty. They don't. In what way do they believe in liberty? MAGA doesn't believe in liberty. So it's not just that they're mystics, they don't believe in liberty. Now, I am irritated more by the right than the left, generally speaking, for two reasons. One, because a lot of people think I'm on the right. A lot of people think Ayn Rand was on the right. Ayn Rand considers herself on the right. And I don't want anybody to get any sense, even a little bit, that that is the case. We have nothing in common with these people. And I want to make that clear because so many people associate with us. Trump's favorite book is The Fountainhead. You some once in a while hear, this and this is Randian. This is Ayn Rand's ideas being implemented. I don't want the left keeps calling Ayn Rand fascist, and part of how they do that is by associating her with people who lean in that direction. I want to keep Ayn Rand away from them, and I want to keep I want the public to have two different categories, Ayn Rand and the right, as separate. So I attack the right more than the left because of that. Second, I view the right as the bigger threat. Because I think the left is so disintegrated that they can never win. And I don't mean win a particular election. People will say, look, Mamdani's winning. Well, sure, of course. And they might even win the presidency. I mean win. I mean be the final victory. Because I don't think at the end of the day that the American people will tolerate them. But I do think the American people are willing to tolerate a right-wing endgame. And again, I refer you to Leonard Peikoff in Ominous Parallels, who predicted a fascist America. And I refer you to Leonard Peikoff in Dim, where he predicted a religious, patriotic, flag-waving, fascist America. I mean, so I'm not arguing from authority. I'm just saying if you want the full argument for why the right is likely to win and not the left, I refer you to both of those books, particularly Dim, where I think he makes an incredible argument for it. And he makes it, which I supported at the time and still do. And so, I mean, I think Ben Shapiro, Charlie Cook, and those guys also, they were the more intelligent people on the right. I think it falls off dramatically in terms of intelligence after that. But they irritate me. They irritate me because too many people confuse me. And because I think they're really, really, really dangerous because I think they will actually win. Richard, thank you. Just emailed you. Has America had a truly great general since Truman fired MacArthur? My father says very positive things about Norman Schwarzkopf. Gulf War was before my time. What about Petraeus? No, Petraeus is terrible. Petraeus is the opposite of Patton, the opposite of MacArthur. Petraeus, oh God, he's so bad. He was the guy who came up with the strategy of defeating the insurgency in Iraq, give them cash basically, and by doing so laid the foundations for ISIS. He's the guy who developed the entire rules of engagement, way of dealing with insurgencies. He wrote his dissertation on how to apply just war theory to insurgencies. Terrible, terrible, terrible. He is why the U.S. military cannot win wars. Schwarzkopf is probably better, probably the closest you're going to come to MacArthur. Gulf War I was very good. It was very strategically done. It was very thought. There was a lot of thinking. Overwhelming force, crush the enemy, move on. And so the closest would be Schwarzkopf, but I don't know enough about him to say how close. Yeah. Richard, the last Roman Republic is many fascinating and disturbing parallels with modern America. The end did not come about because of a single strongman, but a series of many who slowly eroded Rome's institution. Trump is no Caesar, but he may be a Sulla. Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And I haven't done a show on this, but what Trump is doing is eroding the institutions, eroding what America is, eroding what America stands for. What the national conservatives going on and on about America is not an idea is doing, is eroding our confidence in our founding documents. It's eroding confidence in the idea of liberty and freedom and preparing the stage for a Caesar, preparing the stage for a man to come and claim the authority of a Caesar. And I don't think they're doing it purposefully. I think they are useful idiots. Just as I don't think Sulla was doing it purposefully. But it is a great parallel. It's a great way to illustrate this. Yes, Trump is not the strongman. He's not smart enough. He's not ambitious enough politically for that. But he is destroying the institutions in a way that creates that as a possibility. And he is aided and abetted by many, many people, including many intellectuals, to achieve that. So, great parallel. Great parallel. And look, most strongmen only arrive after the state has been weakened, the institutions of liberty have been weakened, so that it's easy for them to take them over. I mean, think about Lenin in Russia, right? First there's a revolution, gets rid of the Tsar, but it's replaced by something very weak that is easily toppled and easily replaced. Even Hitler doesn't win a majority when he's voted in, but the institutions are so eroded, so falling apart by that point, that he can easily topple them and take over and face no opposition in doing it. Now, I don't know Roman Republic history well enough to say who Trump is parallel to, but it doesn't really matter. It's not a parallel to any particular person. It's the principle that's involved. Woo! All right, we have a lot of questions still to go, and it is past midnight, but I will answer them all. All right. Are you going to see Spike Lee's take on Kurosawa's high and low, highest to lowest? Yes. I'm not expecting good things, but I'm going to see it. Isn't it with Denzel Washington? I think it's with Denzel. So yeah, I think he's a great actor. Spike Lee's sometimes an interesting director. The story will be turned upside down, I think. Whereas in High Low, the businessman is a hero, is an admirable character. Here I think he will be made out to be a scoundrel, but we'll see. Are you covering what's happening in Nepal in a show soon? I was going to when the Charlie Cook things happened and I haven't gone back to it. yes, I've already done some reading. I'm going to do more, and I will cover it, particularly given that it's ongoing. Thank you, Catherine, for reminding me. Not your average algorithm. Whoever was questioning Charlie at the moment he was shot needs to be spoken to. Too much of a coincidence. He asked about gun violence right as he was hit. No. I mean, maybe the shooter heard the question and decided that was the moment to shoot. He'd been up on the roof for a while. Why didn't he shoot before? Stop looking for conspiracies. They don't exist. Coincidences happen all the time. All the time. Shockingly, all the time. And yet, there's no God. There's no fate. There's no muses. And there's no conspiracy. And they have talked to the guy who he last spoke to. And, you know, he's not part of some conspiracy to kill Charlie Cook. Pretty confident in that. Liam, it turns out the bullet that killed Charlie Cook actually hit him in the chest and bounced off his bulletproof vest into his own jugular. Is there any way this could have been prevented? I don't know. I heard that as well, right? I heard that story as well, but I haven't seen it verified. So I'm looking for verification. Could it be prevented? I really don't see how. You know, you could make the bulletproof vest soft enough so that the bullet loses a lot of its momentum by hitting it. It kind of absorbs some of it. But it's still going to ricochet. And it's still going to ricochet at a pretty fast thing. I think if this is the case, if what you're saying is the case, it's just a crazy fluke that it would ricochet towards his neck. And it makes sense that a sniper would aim for the chest. Particularly, so, I mean, the story about a ricochet makes a lot of sense to me, particularly given that he's not an assassin who is aiming. An assassin wouldn't aim for the neck. He would aim for the forehead. The forehead is a much more present. I mean, the neck is hard to, I mean, you aim for the head if you're an assassin. If you're a professional, if you're just somebody who knows how to use a gun, you aim for the largest target, and the largest target is the chest. And I think that's what was, so this makes sense to me. Otherwise, I think he aimed for the chest and he missed. And he hit the neck by chance. I don't think there's much of a chance that the guy actually aimed for the neck. I think that would be pretty freaky if that was true. Wyatt 516, White House, what the hell with calling Charlie an evil, immoral power luster? I never called him evil and immoral. Is that your automatic assumption about anyone who grows a movement better? I explained everything that I said about Charlie. So you don't want to hear what I said. That's fine. You want to spew hatred towards me. That's fine. But that's not what I said. And the reality is that I knew Charlie. I watched his evolution. I listened to what he said. What he said was bad. His transition from being an advocate of capitalism to being an acolyte of Donald Trump was immoral. And his snuggling up to the Trumps was a reflection of power lust. And that's all fact-based. It's all something I witnessed firsthand knowing Charlie. And I admitted from the beginning that I admired him for his ability to build a movement. It's sad to me that at the point where he became a Trump acolyte, he pivoted his movement to become, a reflection of MAGA and become much more religious than he had been when he was younger. So he as he grew older, he abandoned a lot of the good ideas he had in his youth. He became less of a pro-capitalist and all of that. So you can accuse me of whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. But you should reflect on the fact that you're not listening, that you can't hear, They're just so, so motivated by hatred of me that you're just gonna spout nonsense, right? Charlie Cook as an intellectual was not a good guy. He was not one of the good guys. I could show you video after video of his spouting things that are really, really, really bad. And he was getting worse, not getting better. He was getting worse. And that's just fact. Now, if you believe everybody on the right is good and everybody on the left is evil, and you believe there is no such thing as a truth, then, live with that. Live with that. All right. Richard, should America have gone to Baghdad in the first Gulf War? Yes. So, if you're going to have a war, you fight it to win. And the only way to win that war was to go to Baghdad. And it's a question whether the United States should have gone to war. That's an open question. Should the United States have gone to war with Saddam Hussein for the sake of the Kuwaitis and the Saudis? Open question. The whole way in which that war done politically was wrong. For example, Israel was not an ally, but all these Arab countries were. And Israel was forced not to respond to the barrage of missiles that Saddam Hussein launched against Israel during that war, and Israel was forced not to respond to that. So there's a lot of things wrong with that war, but if you go to war, you have to win it, and winning it meant going to Baghdad, yes. And that would have changed a lot, right? Go to Baghdad and get out. Don't stay and build them democracy. Harper Campbell, monstrous to think that once Charlie's kids are old enough, they're going to find the video of their father being murdered. Yeah, I mean, but you can't, I don't know there's any way to hide that. But yes, it is truly monstrous. And it's truly horrific what happened to him. James, notice there aren't any school shootings in large cities where, despite the progressive education, there are a ton of opportunities for kids. Yes, I think that's right. I haven't thought about it in that way, but yeah, there are very few school shootings. Although there are school shootings in Colorado very close to, I don't know if the cities in which there have been in Colorado shootings are that far from Denver. But it's usually not in, it's an interesting phenomena. It's got to do with progressive education, but it's also got to do with the opportunities these kids faces, the culture that they live in, the culture that's around them. And we'll see as we learn more about Charlie Cook's killer, we'll know more about who he is and what influences affected him. Clark Young says, I normally don't like speaking ill of the dead, but Charlie was a misogynist, racist, medievalist. I didn't say that, Clark said that, right? But in many respects, that's right. I mean, he certainly expressed racist views periodically. He certainly was a medievalist when it came to religion. And I don't know about misogynism. And he flirted with anti-Semitism periodically. I saw that as well. So, I mean, those are things you see. You can't unsee them because he was killed, and you can't repress them because he was killed, and you can't unsee them because he's on the right, and because he once was a defender of capitalism and liked Ayn Rand. I can't ignore the data that I have. Some of you guys can, but I can't. I call it like I see it. That's why you're here, I think. Michael, did Trump suffer a minor stroke and they're keeping it secret? It looks like his medical problem and senility are becoming noticeable. I don't know. I have no knowledge. I have no reason to believe that is the case. When he does press conferences stuff, he looks fine to me. He looks like Trump. Now he is old. He's getting old. He's slowing down. Has he suffered a stroke? I have no reason to believe he has. I see all the posts on Twitter and everything, but I mean, I think that's trolling mostly. I don't think it's real, but we'll see. You know, it'll be interesting to get an objective opinion from a cardiologist. Linda, Quint Codet does a great job of Je suis Charlie in his writings, novels and poetry, and his freedom merchandise, especially I Am Free poem. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and if I remember right, you guys published the cartoons. There was some forum in which they were published. Yeah, I mean, you got to stand up to evil. You got to call it, and you got to be a Je suis Charlie by speaking and by saying it like it is. I like numbers. Maybe ARI should have kept the campus clubs. I mean, that's funny. We tried. God, we tried. The campus clubs did not die because we didn't want them. The campus clubs did not die because we didn't want to keep them. The campus clubs died because the students didn't want them. We tried to keep them around. We tried supporting them. We tried all kinds of ways to keep them around. But at some point, they all fizzled out and died, even the most successful ones at Michigan, at University of Texas. They depended on a new generation, on one guy or one girl, usually one person, to lead them. And at some point, that one person was not there to do the job. And I have no control over that. I think it was about the same time as the internet became prevalent. Linda Codet, quoting from Quint, you say kneel, I stand. You say silence, I speak. You say submit, I will not, I am free. Yep. That is the attitude. That is Je suis Charlie. The Sacred Order of the Knightly Valor. Would you initiate force to save the David from vandalism? Yes. How much? Whatever was necessary. I mean, vandalism is force. It's a destruction of private property, and you stop it. And just like somebody broke into your house, you would use whatever force was necessary to stop the break-in. Didn't you say a year ago free speech was an apex? Again, you guys you don't listen to what I say. We have more protections for free speech, legal protections for free speech now. The courts are more protective of free speech today, as of a year ago certainly, than they ever have been. In American history. We are at the apex of the courts protecting free speech. Whether that continues or not under the current court, I don't know. But that was true a year ago. And now, are there threats to free speech in terms of individual people threatening speech everywhere? Muslims, particularly Islam? Yes, absolutely. And in Europe, free speech is a disaster. We're certainly not the apex, and I never said that in Europe we're the apex. But in the United States, because of the rulings of the Supreme Court over the last 30, 40 years, maybe 50, we have more freedom to speak than ever before. And on top of that, because of technology, we have today more opportunities to speak freely and safely than ever in our history. And that's because of the internet, because what you're doing right now in the chat. We have more opportunities, we have more news outlets, we have more ways to communicate, we have more ways to express ourselves than ever before. And those ways are protected by our government. Now, what Biden did, particularly around, and this was actually before Biden, it was the Trump administration and then the Biden administration, around COVID, in telling social media what they couldn't post, that was a massive violation of free speech, and I hope still that at some point the Supreme Court will say it is. It's still in the court system, as far as I can tell. The lawsuit is still in the court system. So I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will say that government intervention in what newspapers write and what platforms allow on their platform is a violation of free speech. And if they do that, we will have more legal protections of free speech than ever we have before. And that's the sense in which I meant, I never used the word apex, not in my vocabulary, but that's the sense in which I said we had more free speech, and I stand by it. Richard, do you think a decisive war against Iran in 2001 could have succeeded? Would America have supported it? Would America have supported it? Do you think the U.S. would have benefited from not abiding by Muslim law in burials? Burials where? So yes, I do think a decisive war against Iran in 2001 could have succeeded. I also think you could have made the case to American people. They were ready, they were willing, that Iran was really the enemy. You had to take care of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. But if they could convince the American people to go to Iraq, which was completely irrelevant to 9/11, surely you could convince them to go to Iran. And I think the future of the Middle East would have been different. And I think Americans could have supported it if the right arguments would have been made. I'm not sure, I'm not for not abide by Muslim law in burials. I mean, all of that. I mean, you should be allowed to be buried any way you want to be allowed to be buried. So I don't see any problem with Muslim burials or any private arrangements that you have. I see a problem in preachers who preach jihadist ideology. And if we are at war with jihadism, then they should not be allowed to preach the enemy's teachings. But that you have to declare war. You have to actually articulate a case. Emil, Africa has everything you need, resources, young people, etc. Do you believe that there will be an explosion of innovation and progress in Africa? Only if they adopt freedom, only if they adopt capitalism. That's what they're dependent on. So again, there's this woman, Margaret something. God, I had her name yesterday or the other day when we talked about this. I forget her family name. Who's very good on this. She's constantly advocating for capitalism in Africa. And I think if she wins, yes, Africa will be capitalist and there'll be an explosion of innovation and progress in Africa. Frank, is that an example of modern art behind you? Also in Spartacus, a senator says Rome is out of bread and it's close to panic. What economy did they have? No, that's a coat hanger behind me, and that is a can of Raid to spray on the mosquito, and that is a coat hanger. So no, it's not modern art. I mean, the economy of Rome, that would be a long explanation, but they had an economy that had some elements of division of labor, a lot of trade, a lot of international trade throughout the empire. This is why they built the roads for the army, but also for the trade. Merchants, primitive banks, or pretty advanced banks actually, pretty advanced banking. So they had a pretty sophisticated economy, which started to collapse during the 3rd century, and was really collapsing by the 5th, and Rome was losing access to wheat that was being brought in from North Africa as the barbarians conquered North Africa. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said, but the economy was collapsing for a variety of reasons leading up to the fall of Rome. And the fall of Rome wasn't just one event, but Richard said, to clarify regarding burials, I meant the U.S. military being required to give Sharia-compliant burials to enemy combatants. Oh, well, that's ridiculous. Of course we shouldn't have done that. I mean, that is showing respect to the enemy that you just shouldn't. Imagine burying Nazi soldiers with Nazi burial rites. Nobody would ever think of that. You just, no, it's unthinkable. That is, they should never have done it. It was horrible. Richard also says, Roman insurance industry was also very sophisticated and enabled very sophisticated maritime shipping and trade finance. Yeah, so trade finance was very developed. Insurance, futures contracts, some even option contracts can be traced back to, they couldn't really price them. They didn't have the math, but they winged it, and they did well enough by winging it. Lone Dissenter says, careful of that raid or you'll get accused of mosquito genocide. I'm hoping to get accused of mosquito genocide. It's my goal in life. Kim, thank you for being a positive light in the current chaos. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kim. Not everybody sees me as that. Fleshin, how do you explain that they claim that the right to bear arms is a Christian value? Is that what you meant when you said that the right is disintegrated? No, I don't know when I said that I think the right is disintegrated. I can't remember saying that. I mean, they make it up. I don't know why the right to bear arms is a Christian value. I don't know where it comes from. It's not in the Ten Commandments. It's not in the Bible anyway. It's not in the New Testament. The New Testament is a fairly pacifist document, mostly. Some violence, sometimes. No, I don't know where any right you can derive from Christianity. You kind of make it up, which is what they did with natural rights theory. But no, I don't know where it comes from, where they think it comes from exactly. You'd have to ask a Christian. Andrew, Kirk apparently became very religious, invoking Christ a lot to his friends and close affiliates. Yes, very much. Very, very, very religious, not a little bit. Do you think we're past the point as a technological modern age of having a real Christian revival? No, I think we're not past that point. That's the whole point of DIM. The whole point of DIM is, no, Christian revival is very much a possibility. It'll have to be a revised Christianity, accommodative of the modern world. But yes, I very much think the next authoritarianism will be driven by a Christian revival. Yeah, Charlie became more and more and more religious. Is becoming more and more religious irrational? Is being irrational immoral? Can I say therefore that he was immoral? Yes. Particularly given that he'd read Ayn Rand. He knew there was an alternative. He got sucked in. I mean, he was always religious, but he got sucked in more and more and more into religion. So I don't know what I said that was untrue. Michael, a single strong man didn't destroy Rome, but a single strong man did destroy Germany and Russia. Not really. Again, they were both, the path was laid before them. The path was laid before them. The system had been weakened dramatically by the Weimar Republic in Germany and by the I forget his name's government that followed the Tsar after the Tsar was defeated. So no, I don't think it's a single strongman at all. That Durabani, Galt, forbid you ever get famous enough and get taken out. Would it all be worth it for the incredible cause you're fighting for? I mean, it wouldn't be worth it to me, but I wouldn't do it differently. I mean, what would be the value in life if you just folded at the slightest risk, if you're not willing to fight for what you believe in? I am a fighter. I'm not a folder. Michael, if you want to make someone hate you, explain to them logically and politely why they are wrong. That's Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was a genius. I mean, he was unbelievably witty, so funny. So amazing. Read Oscar Wilde. Go to his plays. Definitely worthwhile engaging. Ragnar, thank you for the sticker. I appreciate it. All right, we are approaching 1 a.m. Let's finish this. Mary Eileen, Book of Mormon has been running on Broadway and making fun of Mormon religion since 2011. Yeah, and it makes fun of the Mormon religion. Doesn't hold back anything. It's one of the funniest things you'll ever see. So why are people so concerned about offending Muslims with a few cartoons of Muhammad? Because the Muslims express their offense by burning down embassies and by killing people and by trying to slaughter you for offending them. If Book of Mormon was a Muslim play, people would be killed. The theater would be burned down. So that's why they're concerned. They're not concerned about offending Christianity or Mormonism or Judaism, but Islam, because the Muslims are violent, which means you should offend them. It's all the more reason to offend them, because they have such thin skins. Andrew, mystics are prone to conspiracy theories. They feel the explanation is right and can imagine it is true. Their mysticism is ultimately emotionalism and vice versa. Their theories a consequence of false epistemology. Absolutely. Look, what is the biggest conspiracy theory ever in the history of mankind? God. God is the biggest conspiracy theory. So mysticism is a conspiracy theory based on no evidence, the assertion of these facts. So they're very susceptible because of that. That's their whole epistemology. It's an authoritarian epistemology, an authoritarian an epistemology detached from reality, detached from facts. Jacob, I don't have a question right now, but I want to thank you for what is a rare rational commentary of news. On that note, are there any objectivist shows you would want to give a shout out to? I mean, I think the Ayn Rand Institute does a regular a podcast that is definitely worth watching. So I think all the stuff coming out of the Ayn Rand Institute is excellent, including their podcasts and their YouTube channel, their YouTube shows. Nikos is doing some good videos, really good videos coming out. There'll be more. A number of the new intellectuals are putting out much, much more content on Substack, on YouTube. You'll see a lot of content coming out. Samantha Watkins is putting out, has a Substack on education. Nikos has a Substack on intellectual left and right, analyzing it. Augustina on immigration, and they're all going to do videos and everything else. So all those people, plus the core of the Ayn Rand Institute, anything Onkar does, that is really good stuff. I give a shout out to all of that. Nate, how do we make the distinction between people who are immoral and people who are actually evil? Cook wasn't evil, but some people are. Do you think Mamdani, Bernie, AOC are evil? They too are immoral. Once you get into a position of acting on the immorality, I think the guy who shot Charlie Cook is evil. When you're taking a life, that is evil. But look, the essence of evil is evasion, which is the same essence of immorality. It's just a question of degree. I think Mamdani, Bernie, and AOC are all immoral. They're no more evil than Charlie Cook, in the sense that they all evade, they all are irrational, they all hold ideas that are divorced from reality, and they teach those ideas, they preach those ideas, they advocate for those ideas. It's bad. Right? But are they evil in the sense of, it's hard to know where to draw the line exactly. Michael, this kid would rather spend the rest of his life in jail instead of hearing words he doesn't like. He's in for a real rude awakening. I don't even think he's that intellectual. I think he'd rather spend his life in jail than feel unseen in the basement of his parents' home. This is more about gaining attention than it is about silencing. I think the world interpreted, the implication is the silencing. Marius, should we stop differentiating between Islamism, jihad, because one consequently leads to another? No, I do think we should separate them. I think that there's Islam, which is a very broad category, but the enemy is not Islam as a broad category. The enemy is Islamism, jihadism, Islamic totalitarianism, Islamic fascism, however you want to call it. It's the part of Islam that wants to impose Sharia law on you. That needs to be opposed, and you should go to war with. If somebody's just a Muslim and living his own life and not intervening in yours, and not arguing for imposing his values on you, then that's not the enemy. All right, guys, Thank you. Incredibly generous today. That was amazing. Particularly Richard. But there were a number of you who were very generous, so thank you. I will see you guys probably tomorrow. I'll do a show either tomorrow or Sunday. Probably not both days, but either tomorrow or Sunday. We will do a show. And yeah, and I have to go back, walk to my Airbnb from my office. I will see you guys, and I will try to announce in advance when the show is going to be. Bye, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Don't forget to like the show if you liked it. And don't forget to support the show on patreon.com. Yaron Brook Show, patreon.com. Bye, everybody.